Following the conclusion of World War II, Yugoslav partisan forces intensified their search for surviving opposition leaders. On March 13, 1946, agents of the Yugoslav Security Agency OZNA captured General Draža Mihailović, leader of the wartime Chetnik movement in eastern Bosnia. His capture marked the end of a long pursuit and set the stage for a significant post-war trial. Subsequently, Mihailovic was transferred to Belgrade to face charges before a military court. The trial commenced on June 10, 1946, attracting considerable domestic and international attention. He stood accused alongside 23 other defendants, primarily former Chetnik commanders and figures associated with the pre-war Yugoslav government or wartime collaborationist regimes. The indictment against Mihailovic was extensive, focusing on two main categories: high treason through collaboration with Axis-occupying forces, namely Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, and war crimes committed by Chetnik forces under his command. Prosecutors alleged numerous instances where Chetnik units engaged Axis forces only sporadically while actively fighting the communist-led partisans, sometimes in coordination with the occupiers. Specific massacres and acts of terror against civilians and captured partisans were attributed to his movement. During the proceedings, Mihailovic defended his actions, asserting that his primary goal was always the defeat of the Axis powers and the restoration of the Yugoslav monarchy. He argued that any contacts with the occupiers were tactical maneuvers forced by circumstance, intended to acquire arms or mitigate harm to civilians, and framed his struggle primarily as one against the communist partisans, whom he viewed as a greater long-term threat. He also claimed that many atrocities were committed by commanders acting independently, beyond his effective control in the chaotic conditions of civil war. The trial faced criticism, particularly from observers in Western nations like the United States and the United Kingdom. Concerns were raised about the fairness of the proceedings, limitations placed on the defense, and the denial of testimony from Allied personnel, including American airmen rescued by Chetniks during the war, who wished to speak on Mihailovic's behalf regarding his efforts to aid them. Many viewed the trial as politically motivated, designed by Josip Broz Tito's new communist government to eliminate a rival nationalist figurehead and consolidate power. Despite Mihailovic's defense and the international controversy, the military court delivered its verdict on July 15, 1946. Mihailovic was found guilty on all major counts, including treason and collaboration with the enemy. He was sentenced to death by firing squad and stripped of his civil rights and military rank. Along with Mihailovic, 9 other defendants received death sentences, while the remainder were given prison terms ranging from 18 months to 20 years. Appeals for clemency, including Mihailovic's own, were rejected. In the early hours of July 17, 1946, Draža Mihailović was executed by firing squad at an undisclosed location in Belgrade. To prevent his grave from becoming a shrine, the exact place of burial was kept secret by the Yugoslav authorities and remains officially unknown to this day. The trial and execution effectively eliminated the Chetnik movement's leadership and solidified the partisans' control over post-war Yugoslavia. The execution of Mihailovic and his fellow defendants sent a clear message throughout post-war Yugoslavia. The new communist regime under Josip Broz Tito demonstrated its resolve to eliminate all political and military opposition, consolidating its authority firmly. During this period, any public expression of support for Mihailovic or the Chetnik cause was suppressed. Official Yugoslav historiography consistently portrayed him as a traitor and collaborator, erasing nuance and downplaying any anti-Axis actions undertaken by his forces. His role in rescuing hundreds of Allied airmen, particularly Americans, was largely ignored or minimized within the country. Internationally, the trial and execution remained contentious. In the West, particularly among Serbian diaspora communities and some Allied veterans who had contact with the Chetniks, Mihailovic was often viewed as a tragic figure betrayed by circumstances and Allied policy shifts favoring the partisans. President Harry S. Truman posthumously awarded Mihailovic the Legion of Merit in 1948 for his contribution to the Allied victory, specifically the rescue operations, although the award was kept classified for nearly 2 decades to avoid upsetting relations with Tito's Yugoslavia. Throughout the era of socialist Yugoslavia, Mihailovic's name was synonymous with treason. School textbooks and state media reinforced the narrative established during the 1946 trial. Attempts to present a more complex picture were politically impossible. As events unfolded following the breakup of Yugoslavia in the early 1990s, historical narratives began to be reassessed. In Serbia, discussion about Mihailovic's role resurfaced, moving away from the strict communist-era interpretation. Nationalist sentiment contributed to a reevaluation, with some viewing him as a Serbian patriot who fought against both the Nazis and the communists. Subsequently, efforts began to formally rehabilitate Mihailovic. In May 2015, after a lengthy legal process initiated by his grandson and supported by various groups, the High Court in Belgrade annulled the 1946 verdict. The court ruled that the trial had been politically motivated, lacking due process and fair trial standards, effectively rehabilitating Mihailovic legally within Serbia. However, this legal rehabilitation did not end the historical debate. The decision sparked controversy both within Serbia and in neighboring countries, particularly Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia, where memories of Chetnik atrocities during World War II remain strong. Historians continue to debate the complexities of his leadership, the extent of collaboration, his level of control over disparate Chetnik factions, and his ultimate legacy in the turbulent history of the Balkans. The 2015 court decision in Belgrade immediately triggered diplomatic protests and sharp condemnations from neighboring countries. Governments in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, along with various victims' associations, denounced the ruling as an attempt to rewrite history and whitewash war crimes committed by Chetnik forces. During this period, contrasting commemorations highlighted the deep divisions. While supporters in Serbia sometimes held memorials honoring Mihailovic as an anti-fascist patriot, counter-protests and official statements in other former Yugoslav republics emphasized his movement's collaboration and responsibility for ethnic cleansing campaigns against non-Serbs. Subsequently, the figure of Mihailovic became even more polarized in public discourse across the region. His image was increasingly invoked by Serbian nationalist groups, while simultaneously serving as a symbol of wartime suffering and Serbian expansionism for Bosniaks and Croats. Academic scholarship also continued to reflect these divisions. While some historians focused on Allied records and Mihailovic's anti-German actions early in the war and the airmen rescues, others emphasized documented instances of Chetnik Axis tactical cooperation against the partisans and extensive evidence of atrocities committed under the Chetnik banner. As events unfolded, the search for Mihailovic's execution site and burial place gained renewed attention following the rehabilitation. Various unofficial investigations and speculations emerged, though Yugoslav-era state secrecy continued to obscure the definitive location, preventing closure for his family and supporters seeking a formal grave. Ultimately, the legacy of Draža Mihailović remains profoundly contested territory. Decades after his trial and execution on July 17, 1946, his actions and the nature of the Chetnik movement continue to fuel debate, historical revisionism, and political tension within Serbia and throughout the former Yugoslavia. During this period, historians continued to grapple with the complexities documented in Axis archives. German and Italian military records often detailed local arrangements and temporary truces between their forces and various Chetnik commanders, primarily directed against the partisans. Interpreting whether these constituted strategic collaboration orchestrated by Mihailovic or localized survival tactics remains a core point of contention. Allied intelligence reports from the war years also present a complicated picture. Early reports, particularly from British liaison officers, often spoke favorably of Chetnik resistance efforts. However, as the war progressed, accounts increasingly noted Chetnik inactivity against the Axis and growing conflict with the partisans, leading to the pivotal Allied decision in late 1943 to shift primary support to Tito. Chetnik communications intercepted during the war, along with post-war testimonies, offer insights into the movement's internal dynamics and ideology. Documents revealed a commitment to restoring the monarchy and establishing a greater Serbia, objectives that sometimes led to brutal actions against non-Serb populations and political opponents, independent of direct Axis collaboration. The relationship between Mihailovic and the Yugoslav royal government in exile in London was also fraught with difficulty. While officially appointed Minister of Army, Navy, and Air Force, Mihailovic's ability to direct policy was hampered by distance, poor communication, and differing strategic perspectives, further complicating assessments of his ultimate responsibility. Subsequently, the unresolved questions surrounding Mihailovic's command responsibility and the Chetniks' actions continue to influence contemporary politics. His figure is frequently instrumentalized in debates about national identity, wartime narratives, and interethnic relations in the post-Yugoslav space. In the year 2024, more than 75 years after his execution, a unified historical consensus on Draža Mihailović remains elusive. He persists as a symbol embodying conflicting interpretations of patriotism, resistance, collaboration, and war crimes, reflecting the enduring divisions stemming from World War II in the Balkans.